Hi everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. A bitch is back talking about books, and today we are going to be talking about book 2 to Abby Jimenez's romantic comedy series, the Part of Your World series. It's called Yours Truly Book 2. I already talked about book 1 and my thoughts on the series as a whole. This is just my dedicated video to this second book in the series. I would say, if you don't know anything about the series, I would consider it being a series that follows women in the medical field, because all of the women in the books are in the medical field in some shape or form. They are romance books ending in happily ever afters that takes place in Minnesota. So this second book follows a girl named Brianna and her love story with Jacob. It is an enemies to friends to lovers. It is a workplace romance. If you know anything about Part of Her World, the first book of the series, Alexis is the main character in that book. This is Alexis's best friend. Brianna is Alexis' best friend. This is her book. This is her love story. We follow Brianna. She works as a doctor at the hospital that Alexis also works at. Really huge, world-renowned hospital. I believe it's called like Ramune. When I'm reading it, I don't say things out loud when I read. I just realized that. So like when I'm reading it, I'm thinking of Ramune, like the drink, but I don't think that's the name of the hospital, but I called it Ramune, so I'm gonna call the hospital Ramune. It's like a really world-renowned hospital, and she works here, and a position, a promotion just opened up. Brianna really wants this promotion. She's vying for this, and she is going in unopposed. That is until a new bombshell has entered the villa. Is that what they say on Love Island? I don't know. This new doctor, his name is Jacob Maddox, and that is the male lead of the story. He worked at another hospital before he moved here, and of course the story starts off with them being enemies because Brianna hates Jacob because he is vying, quote-unquote vying, for the position that she is going after. Who does he think he is? I have spent years and years and years working at this hospital, and he thinks he can just come in here and take the position that I have always wanted, that sort of thing. So she obviously has this hatred towards him in the very beginning. They get off to a really bad start. It's also because in this hospital, Brianna is very well loved and well respected. And Jacob is the opposite. Meet Jacob. He has moved to Ramune Hospital. I'm just gonna call it Ramune, okay? Ramune Hospital to get away from his ex, who he used to work with at his old hospital in a different city. The reason why he moves to this new hospital is because his ex is now engaged to his brother. So that is the complication. That is the situation that we are getting ourselves into in the beginning of this book. He is a very loving, protective, empathetic, giving person. All Jacob wants is for his whole family to get along, even his ex and his brother. When his ex and Jacob broke up, not even years but months later, she got with his brother. Everybody in the family was on Jacob's side. Everyone said, we can't forgive the brother, we can't trust him, we don't like the girlfriend, we don't like your ex. What they did was horrible, and they think that Jacob is in shambles. They think he is in the gutter. They feel so sorry for him. And Jacob, just wanting everybody to get along, being the person that he is, wants them to forgive his brother and try to have his family talk to his brother again, because Jacob does not want his family to feel bad for him anymore. The beginning of the story also starts off with the brother and the ex, aka that new couple, telling Jacob that they got engaged. They are engaged to be married. That is what the situation we are getting into. Jacob wants everybody in his family to move on, to make them believe, and they don't believe him when he says he's moved on. To make them believe that he's actually moved on, he tells a little white lie to his family, saying that he has a new girlfriend at his new hospital that he works at, and that is the reason why he moved to the new hospital. It wasn't to get away from his ex and his brother, it was to be closer to his new girlfriend. His quote-unquote fake new girlfriend, because this is a totally made-up person that does not exist. A little bit about Jacob. He is an introvert. He is not really good with people. That is also the reason why his first impressions with Brianna don't end well. They meet in the hallway. When she comes running through the halls and bumps into him, Jacob drops his phone on the floor and it cracks. The screen cracks. She runs away from him and he starts running in the direction that she went in, like, oh my god, I cannot believe she just ran into me and she didn't say anything and she cracked my phone. He follows her into the room that she went into. The room that she is in is a room that her brother is in. Brianna's brother has a kidney that is failing. He has an underlying condition. He really needs a kidney transplant, and he is on the kidney transplant list. He has to do regular dialysis. This is him being hospitalized once again. Jacob walks into this awkward situation. Immediately upon entering this room, seeing Brianna there, the brother there in the bed, he freezes because she is the most beautiful woman he has ever seen. Yeah, that got me. I know. So cheesy, but it got me. And he gets flustered by her beauty and just says the entirely wrong thing and comes off like an asshole. Like, you should watch where you're going. You shouldn't bump into people in the hallway. Just saying all the wrong things. She obviously is like, what the hell, dude? Why are you being so mean to me, basically? And of course, she already doesn't like him, and it just adds upon that. Jacob hates this new hospital that he works in. Seemingly everybody else in the hospital hates him. Nobody has given him a good time. Brianna hates him. His coworkers are all on her side, and he has social anxiety. He feels bad for the way that he reacted to Brianna on their first meeting, but doesn't really know how to speak to her in person. So he starts to journal and he writes her a letter. It's a good letter, and she reads it. Brianna is very charmed by this letter, forgives him, and they start writing letters to each other back and forth. So that is also a trope in this book, the letters back and forth. They write these letters without ever having hung out. And then she realizes she actually really likes his personality. Brianna realizes this, and that he's a good guy. She stalks his Instagram. She calls him on the phone. They start talking for hours, and then they hang out in person, and they get lunch together in a broom closet with each other. They become really good friends. Jacob really likes Brianna, and Brianna really likes Jacob, and they really value the time that they spent with each other, and this is a slow burn to get there. Jacob has a backstory where his mom also needed a kidney transplant. He, as a person, has always wanted to donate his kidney. He secretly gets some testing done to see if he's a match. He ends up being a match to Brianna's brother and becomes a kidney donor for Brianna's brother. He literally donates his kidney to Brianna, and he tries to do this all anonymously. She finds out anyway, and she is so grateful for him, does not know what to say. I love how I'm just explaining the entire story, but I love this story. I literally love this book. Then one day, Jacob's sister visits Jacob at the hospital, tries to look for him, comes to visit him as work, and through a small misunderstanding, Jacob's sister mistakes Brianna to be the new girlfriend that he said he had at the hospital. Brianna agrees to fake date Jacob and to go to family functions with him, and that is how their fake dating scheme starts. So that is the whole synopsis of the book. I literally went through such a long synopsis. I think the beginnings of the story is so cute. If you want to get more, you can read it. It is fake dating. It is enemies to friends to lovers. It is slow burn. It's every trope known to man. Okay, and I'll talk about the tropes later, but this was my favorite of the series, just as characters too, because you could really feel the love between these two characters, and you knew leaving the book as a reader that they were soulmates, that there is no one in the world that is more perfect for each other than them. That is what I love to read about in a book, okay? I love to read about people and believe that soulmates exist, and this book was the definition of to be loved is to be known. This book solidified for me that Abby Jimenez was an insta-read author. Immediately upon picking up this book and starting it, I could not put it down. I read it so quickly. The letters, I think, were such a good way to set up the relationship. Having someone who is really bad at speaking and then having them write letters is just so wholesome and cute. It was a slow burn. First, they don't like each other. Then with their words, they realize that they find each other interesting. They slowly develop that into wanting to spend real time with each other, all the way to the point where it's hard to even imagine them apart. Get into a man who hates to be around people but wants to be around you. The biggest compliment ever. He is an introvert but wants to be around her all of the time, and that is just a testament to how comfortable Jacob feels around her, and you understand why he is in love with her and vice versa. He is literally a saint of a man. He donated his kidney to her brother. That is not because he was asking anything of her. It wasn't because he wanted to do that to maybe have a chance at her. He did that. He wanted to do that anonymously. He did that because that is just the person that he is. And he would have done it even if she hated him. And you know that as a reader. And I just find that so endearing and cute. You understand the reasons why he is in love with her. She makes him feel safe. She understands him. She understands without even him having to say anything when he feels uncomfortable in a situation, when he needs to get out, how to feel better in a crowded room. It's crazy how it's a slow burn of a book, but also the way that the relationship worked, technically, their relationship moved really fast. They're just friends and they start their fake dating scheme. And then by the time that they've technically only known each other for like a month or two, he's already asking her to move in with him. And she does it. And they're still friends, okay? But they spend so much time with each other that they feel that connection with each other so much to the point where I want to wake up next to you, I want to sleep next to you. It's so visceral why they want to spend so much time with each other, even though they've technically only known each other for a month. How is it possible that this is a slow burn? If you really think about it in the grand scheme of things, like, oh, they moved in with each other within months of knowing each other. That is crazy. They move in with each other for the fake dating scheme. There is some sort of justification behind it, but it's stupid. It's so stupid, but it's a rom-com. Like, what are you gonna do? I was like, of course stupid things are gonna happen. I like that as a reader, you get through all these family functions, the Jacob family functions, you get Brianna's personality and that the way she knows Jacob on an innate level, and it really shines through on these family functions. She knows when he feels uncomfortable in social settings. She gives him an out when it gets hard for him. And you know as a reader that she truly understands him. I just couldn't help but feel how much love they had for each other and how much they really truly could not be apart. They're just better together. I also really like the way that anxiety was depicted in this book. The way that Jacob's overthinking was written out on paper, on the page, his thought process and how he would spiral and overthink everything. I didn't realize how much I personally related to this, that it was such a very specific but shared experience. I was like, damn, I thought I was the only one who felt this way, that would spiral like this, but it was almost borderline exactly my thought process when I would spiral and overthink everything. So I just thought that was really interesting that it was written out on paper and it felt so specific. So that was another thing I loved. And then, oh my God, you guys, whoever stayed till this part of the video, you do not understand what I mean when I say that the climax of this book, the one intimate scene in this book, it's not a smutty book. It's like an Emily Henry book where they have one smut scene at the climax of the book. A smut scene in this book. I need a moment, okay? I'm being straight serious, you guys, okay? Never in my life, in my entire life, have I read a smut scene so emotional and visceral than this one was. This was the most intense smut scene I have ever read in my life. The most intense. It was so wrought with emotions and feelings, which is insane to say because as a smut scene, the things that they were actually doing, it was literally like missionary. Okay, it was regular schmegler missionary. It was so intense and emotional that I felt it. I felt it in my heart. Oh my God. They were sobbing. They were crying. There was so much going on in the back of both of these characters' heads. How much they loved each other. I was like, oh my God, someone hold my hand. Reading this feels so raw. It felt so raw. It's just because it was so intentional and so emotional. It wasn't a scene that was supposed to turn you on. It just felt, by that point in the book, you knew these characters so well and how much they felt for each other, how much they weren't saying to each other because of all of their history. I was sobbing. I was sobbing while reading a smut scene, okay? I was literally sobbing while reading a smut scene, okay? Because it just felt like all of the stakes were so high. I'm gonna say one thing about the book, okay? So much miscommunication. Half the book's miscommunication. I'll talk about it later. But because of the back and forth, how much back and forth you get between them telling each other how they feel about each other and then not saying it, saying how they feel, not saying it, holding everything in. There was so much tension between the two of them over time and time and time that they would spend with each other that the smut scene felt like a release. They finally did something about all of this tension. It was so specific to the book and it was so specific to them as characters. You couldn't just copy and paste that smut scene in any book, in any part of that book for anything. It was very specific to them. And I think as a reader, that is what I needed and that is what I got. It was perfectly done. I think that redundant, intimate scenes that don't mean anything to the plot and just are in there just to be in there, there's a time and place for that. But like, if I'm trying to read a rom-com, we do not need that. Like in Icebreaker, why there's so many, like, we do not be needing, like, it just feels like filler to me. We don't need filler intimate scenes, okay? And this one did not feel like filler. It was so palpable. The emotions that they were flowing with each other, I was taken aback. I sat there, I was reading it, I was crying my eyes out, and I had to put the book down. I was like, oh my God. And then, oh my God, it's coming back to me now. It's coming back to me how I was feeling while reading this, because after the intimate scene, okay, then she goes on her whole little internal thing about like, no, get away from me. We can't do this ever again. I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God, stop annoying me, girl. Stop annoying me. He loves you. He loves you. Like, oh! It was so frustrating as a reader. It was frustrating in a good way because it was frustrating in the way that the author meant it to be frustrating for you. It was the longing, it was the pining, it was the wanting something but not being able to have it. How emotional it makes you feel as a reader. That is sort of all of the likes that I liked about the book. Now I will get into my dislikes or the cons, and there are honestly a bit of them. One of them being that they tried to put every single trope known to man in this book. They did not need that. It was doing too much. I think the book dragged a lot. It was, I think, almost 500 pages. It was for sure around 500 pages. Why does a romance book need to be 500 pages? Can we stop with writing romance books that are 500 pages? If it is not a slow burn, like a real true slow burn, why are we making 500, 600 page romance books? Okay, please, please. 350 pages, that is enough to tell the story. And it's not even that. Like I've already said, the beginning of their love story starts out slow as a slow burn, but it was the back and forth. The miscommunication went on for way too long. How is it 100 pages, 150 pages of just straight up family function? They're about to tell each other they love each other, but they don't say it. Family function, they're about to say they love each other, but they don't say it. How many times are we gonna go around in circles about how you actually feel about each other? And not believing each other when every single action that the other person is showing you is showing that they love you. I am okay with miscommunication trope. Unpopular opinion, but I am actually okay with miscommunication trope in a book because of pining. It makes for more longing. If there's a little bit of miscommunication, that's fine because that makes the story go on a little bit longer. They will pine for each other a little bit more because they feel like they can't have them because of that miscommunication. Fine, right? I eat that up, okay? But for this book, it went on just way too long. It kept going on and on and on. They really could have cut 100 pages out of this book. I think if they did, this would have been a 5 out of 5 star read for me. This would have been the perfect book for me. I also think that the third act conflict was so misplaced. There was 2 third act conflicts because they were trying to put every trope known to man in here. They had that third act conflict with the climax being the smut scene and then the aftermath of that. And then the second third act conflict happened and it felt so misplaced. They could have cut it out of the book entirely, quite honestly. Or they could have made it more apparent that it was going to be an issue throughout the entirety of the rest of the book. It just felt like that part of the book made it drag on for way too long. Because we have the climax, the smut scene and the aftermath, they get together for real. And then there's Jacob's brother's wedding. Jacob's brother's wedding with his ex. And then we add another conflict on top of that. I was really just like, what is the reason? Can this book be over already? Can this book be over already? Because there is a whole nother part of this book. Jacob has his whole thing with his ex. Brianna has her whole thing with her ex. And I didn't even explain that throughout the entirety of my plot summary, but her ex cheated on her. It's a whole thing, and she goes through an internal cycle of, I never want to be with another man ever again. I don't trust men. She says she never wants to be in a relationship again after that because she just has such deep emotional trust issues. It's a whole thing. And they do explain it all the way in the beginning, but tell me why. I know Ms. Girl has trust issues, okay? I know that as a reader, and she doesn't trust men. But then I started to get annoyed of her, especially at the very, very end when her ex and that whole thing started getting brought up again, because I was just like, why is she self-sabotaging? I know this is part of her and she is supposed to self-sabotage, but it was making the book drag on too long. Like, they could have solved this so long ago, or they could have taken out more of the miscommunication so long ago. That whole part of herself, the self-doubt, the not trusting other people, that everybody is gonna leave in her life, all those things were always in the back of her head throughout the book, but it wasn't apparent enough during their relationship with Jacob, because she kept saying over and over again with Jacob, with him, it would be different. He was turning all of my no's into maybes. And that's what she would say throughout the book. She didn't want to have a relationship because she doesn't trust men anymore, but Jacob is different. Jacob was the exception. And she said that over and over again throughout the book, multiple times. And then all of a sudden, Miss Girl is happy. She is happy, and then she self-sabotages. And I'm like, why? Why is the self-sabotaging coming? It was just annoying me because I wish it was brought up more throughout, or her ex and that issue would come out throughout instead of it being an issue just bam, all the way at the end. Came out of nowhere. It came out of nowhere. She's healed from her past, right? And then she sees her ex once and starts freaking out. And I will say, there are underlying reasons extra as to why she's freaking out, even more, which I will not spoil, but I will hint that it is a trope that many people do not like, that people usually hate in romance books. That is also part of the reason why the things with her ex come up for her. It just still, as a reader, it still felt like it came out of nowhere. It was just so frustrating at that point while reading it. I was like, I already got my happily ever after. Can we wrap it up? Can we wrap it up, please? Can we wrap this book up, please? I love it. I love it, but we need to wrap it up. There's just issue upon issue happening now. That was another con of the book. Lastly, they never wrapped up some certain plot points. This goes along with, they were trying to do too much with the book. It was like 500 pages for what? For what? Let's keep it down a little bit. There were certain plot points that were never wrapped up. For example, she wanted that promotion in the beginning of the book. Did she ever get that promotion? Did she not care about the promotion anymore? What happened with that promotion? That was such a huge issue for her in the beginning of the book, that she needed this promotion. What happened to it? Please correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe they said it in a sentence here or there and maybe I just skimmed over it while reading it in the epilogue or something. But even in the epilogue, I was looking for it and I didn't hear anything about the promotion or her getting it or her wanting it anymore, or he even saying that, oh, I don't need the promotion anymore. And maybe I just missed it and they did mention it in the book, but let me know if you guys have read this and they actually mention it. But that was such a huge thing in the beginning and then they just gloss over it and then they just don't care about it anymore. You could tell they used the promotion as a device to set up the fact that Brianna and Jacob were gonna be enemies in the beginning. But then she actually doesn't care about the promotion in the end. It's just a plot point that they never get to. Maybe I missed it, maybe they did say it, but please let me know if I'm wrong about that. Overall, I loved this book. I think you could tell by how much I was yapping about it. The thing I love about any romance book, and the reason why I love romance books, is because I love stories about characters, about human connection. You will always get that in a good romance book. And this one felt like a good romance book. It was actually romantic. It actually felt like a book about soulmates, about people who are finding each other and falling in love with each other. It had so much pining, longing, yearning. It felt so visceral in the emotions that they felt. The writing style, very simplistic, absolutely. I think with Abby Jimenez, what you're gonna get is very simplistic writing style, but it doesn't really matter when the story feels so real. I would consider this a compliment. I think Abby Jimenez writes like a very, very good Wattpad author. You stay for the story between the people, you stay for the butterflies in your stomach and the cringy little things that might happen in between, the circumstances that the characters are in, and how they get together and the internal dealings of what characters go through, you don't necessarily stay for the writing style. And I think Abby Jimenez does story really well, and she does the characters really well. And the connection between these two, like, oh, I loved it. Yeah, it was flawed. Yeah, it was a little bit too long. But as a couple, Brianna and Jacob were my favorite couple. After reading this book, I thought about this book for days after replaying scenes in my head about how they fell in love. For me, that is how I know I really love a book, when I take days and reminisce about it. When I get utterly obsessed, just sit in my car and I'll just be like, I miss them. I miss them. I miss their story. And that is what this one made me feel. Part of your world did the plot better, but as a couple, as a love story, I think this one was better. This one is my favorite couple, but maybe the actual book, Part of Your World, is better. I just felt so much while reading this. I just got so invested in the story. It felt romantic in every sense of the word. I gave the book a 4.75 out of 5 stars. Loved it, okay? I really loved it. Mind you, when I say it's 4.75 out of 5 stars, it's a 5-star. Most books I rank above a 4.5. You can round up to be 5 stars. Like, never really said 5-star, like perfect book, but I mean that. The Right Move, that is a 5-star book to me. Book Lovers, that's a 5-star book to me. This book feels like a 5-star book to me because of the way it made me feel, okay? Because of my emotions. I just never say it out loud and like rate it like that. I say it's 4.75, I mean 5, okay? So that is my rating. Please, please, please let me know what your thoughts on this book is. I really want to hear it. Thank you so much for watching, and I might have a special guest on my next video, so please keep a lookout for that. That would be really embarrassing if it actually doesn't happen, but I'm gonna try to make it happen, okay? So thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.